Let your eyes close now, and let your body sink a little deeper into wherever you're resting. Tonight, we're going to drift somewhere different, not upward into the stars, but downward gently into the deep, quiet water that covers most of our world. Let's begin at the surface, soft and calm, before sinking slowly beneath it. The ocean covers more of Earth than you might realize. About 71% of the entire planet's surface wrapped in deep, moving water. So much of it, in fact, that if you looked at Earth from far enough away, it wouldn't look like a green and brown world at all. It would look almost entirely blue, a quiet, water-covered planet drifting gently through space. Rest a moment in that thought, and let's drift a little deeper. Despite covering so much of our world, the ocean remains mostly unexplored. Scientists often say we've mapped more of the surface of the moon and even parts of Mars than we have of our own ocean floor. More than 80% of it has never been seen by human eyes at all. A vast, dark wilderness resting quietly beneath the surface of a world we call our own. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift downward, past the sunlit water near the top. The very top layer of the ocean, where sunlight can still reach, is called the sunlit zone, and it only extends down about 200 meters before the light begins to fade. Almost everything you might picture when you imagine the ocean, coral reefs, colorful fish, sea turtles drifting lazily along, lives within this thin, bright slice near the surface. Beneath it, the water grows dim, and then dark, and then otherwise for miles and miles further down. Rest a moment, and let's sink a little further into the next quiet layer. Below the sunlit zone lies the twilight zone, where the light grows faint and blue, too dim for most plants to survive, but not yet fully dark. Strange, quiet creatures drift through this dim, in-between world, some producing their own soft light, called bioluminescence, glowing gently in the dark like slow, drifting lanterns. It's thought that the vast majority of creatures living in this middle layer can produce light of their own, a quiet, glowing world hidden just below where sunlight finally gives out. Let your thoughts drift a little further down now, into true darkness. Beneath the twilight zone lies the midnight zone, where no sunlight reaches at all, not even the faintest trace. And yet, even down here, in complete and permanent darkness, life continues, quietly adapted to a world that never sees the sun. Some creatures have grown enormous eyes, straining to catch the faintest bioluminescent glow. Others have lost their eyes almost entirely, relying instead on touch and vibration and patience, drifting slowly through a black, silent world. Rest here a moment in that deep, quiet dark. Let's drift down even further now toward the very deepest place in the entire ocean. The Mariana Trench, resting in the western Pacific, plunges down to a depth of about 11,000 meters, so deep that if you placed Mount Everest at the bottom of it, its peak would still sit over a mile beneath the surface of the water above. It's the deepest known point in all of Earth's oceans, a quiet, crushing trench, resting in permanent darkness, far below anything most of us will ever see. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on the pressure found down there. At the very bottom of that trench, the water pressure is so immense, over 1,000 times greater than at the surface, that would crush most submarines instantly, the way a hand might crush a paper cup. And yet, remarkably small, soft-bodied creatures still live down there, quietly adapted to a pressure that would be instantly fatal to almost anything else drifting gently along the trench floor in a world built entirely around that crushing weight. Rest here now, and let's gather one final, gentle thought before pausing. The ocean isn't just deep. It's old, too, far older than almost anything living within it today. Scientists believe Earth's oceans have existed, in some form, for around 4 billion years, nearly as long as the planet itself, holding quietly the entire story of life as we know it, from its first fragile beginnings all the way to tonight. Rest here now, and let it all settle. A blue planet wrapped mostly in water, a floor less explored than the surface of the moon, a thin, bright layer where sunlight still reaches, a dim, glowing twilight world just beneath it, a silent midnight zone in permanent dark, the crushing, quiet depths of the Mariana Trench, and an ocean nearly as old as the Earth itself. We'll continue drifting deeper into the strange creatures and hidden mysteries resting further below in a little while. Drifting deeper now into the strange and quiet creatures that call the darkest parts of the ocean home. Let your body settle again, heavy and warm. We've drifted down through sunlit water, dim twilight, and permanent dark. Let's rest for a while now among the strange, quiet creatures who call that deep darkness home. Down in the black, cold water of the deep sea, one of the most familiar shapes drifting through the dark is the anglerfish. A small, quiet fish, mostly unremarkable except for one strange feature. A thin, glowing filament stretched out just above its mouth, tipped with a soft bioluminescent light. Smaller creatures, curious about that gentle glow, drift closer to. Rest here a moment in that deep, quiet dark. Let's drift down even further now toward the very deepest place in the entire ocean. The Mariana Trench, resting in the western Pacific, plunges down to a depth of about 11,000 meters. So deep that if you placed Mount Everest at the bottom of it, its peak would still sit over a mile beneath the surface of the water above. It's the deepest known point in all of Earth's oceans, a quiet, crushing trench, resting in permanent darkness, far below anything most of us will ever see. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on the pressure found down there. At the very bottom of that trench, the water pressure is so immense, over 1,000 times greater than at the surface, that would crush most submarines instantly, the way a hand might crush a paper cup. And yet, remarkably, small, soft-bodied creatures still live down there, quietly adapted to a pressure that would be instantly fatal to almost anything else, drifting gently along the trench floor in a world built entirely around that crushing weight. Rest here now, and let's gather one final, gentle thought before pausing. The ocean isn't just deep. It's old too, far older than almost anything living within it today. Scientists believe Earth's oceans have existed, in some form, for around 4 billion years, nearly as long as the planet itself, holding quietly the entire story of life as we know it, from its first fragile beginnings all the way to tonight. Rest here now, and let it all settle. A blue planet wrapped mostly in water, a floor less explored than the surface of the moon, a thin, bright layer where sunlight still reaches, a dim, glowing twilight world just beneath it, a silent midnight zone in permanent dark, the crushing, quiet depths of the Mariana Trench, and an ocean nearly as old as the Earth itself. We'll continue drifting deeper into the strange creatures and hidden mysteries resting further below in a little while. Drifting deeper now into the strange and quiet creatures that call the darkest parts of the ocean home. Let your body settle again, heavy and warm. We've drifted down through sunlit water, dim twilight, and permanent dark. Let's rest for a while now among the strange, quiet creatures who call that deep darkness home. Down in the black, cold water of the deep sea, one of the most familiar shapes drifting through the dark is the anglerfish. A small, quiet fish, mostly unremarkable except for one strange feature. A thin, glowing filament stretched out just above its mouth, tipped with a soft, bioluminescent light. Smaller creatures, curious about that gentle glow, drift closer to investigate, never realizing they've been lured patiently and quietly toward the very mouth that made the light in the first place. Rest a moment, and let's drift towards something even stranger. Some male anglerfish live a life unlike almost anything else on Earth. Far smaller than the females, a male will find a mate and quite literally fuse himself on her body permanently, their skin and blood vessels slowly joining together until he becomes little more than a small, permanent attachment, providing nothing but reproduction from that point onward. A strange, quiet partnership built entirely around the crushing loneliness of the deep, dark water they live in. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward a gentler creature now. The giant squid, for most of human history, was known only through legend. Whispered stories from sailors of enormous sea monsters, tangling ships in their arms. It wasn't until 2004 that scientists finally photographed a live giant squid in its natural deep-sea home for the very first time, confirming what had only ever been rumored before. These creatures can grow up to 13 meters long, with eyes larger than dinner plates, some of the largest eyes in the entire animal kingdom, built to catch every last trace of light in the deep, dark water they drift through. Rest here a moment, and let's drift towards something that survives without any light at all. Near certain deep-sea vents, called hydrothermal vents, scalding, mineral-rich water pours upward from cracks in the ocean floor, far too deep for any sunlight to ever reach. And yet, remarkably, entire ecosystems thrive there, feeding not on sunlight, the way almost everything on the surface does, but on the chemicals rising up from the vents themselves through a quiet process called chemosynthesis. Tall, strange tube worms, some over 2 meters long, cluster together around these vents, living an entire life built on chemistry instead of light. Let your thoughts drift further now, towards something small and remarkably resilient. The tiny tardigrade, sometimes called the water bear, is barely visible to the naked eye, and yet it may be one of the toughest creatures in existence. It can survive extreme pressure, extreme cold, complete dehydration, and even the vacuum of outer space itself, quietly entering a dormant state and simply waiting patiently for conditions to improve again, sometimes for years at a time. Rest a moment, and let's drift towards something ancient, hidden deep in the dark. The Greenland shark, drifting slowly through cold, deep Arctic waters, is believed to be the longest living vertebrate on Earth. Some individuals are estimated to live more than 400 years, moving so slowly and aging so gradually that a shark alive today may have been swimming quietly through the same dark water since long before your own great-great-grandparents were born. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final creature before pausing here. The immortal jellyfish, small and nearly transparent, holds a strange and gentle secret. When faced with injury or old age or simply stress, It can revert its own cells back to an earlier stage of life, effectively starting its life cycle over again and again, in theory indefinitely. Not truly immortal in the way the name suggests, but holding a kind of quiet, biological patience that very few other creatures share. Rest here now, and let it all settle. A glowing lure hidden in the dark, a strange and permanent partnership built from loneliness, a giant squid finally seen after centuries of rumor, whole colonies living on chemistry instead of light, a tiny creature tough enough to survive nearly anything, an ancient shark older than memory itself, and a small jellyfish that quietly refuses to fully end. We'll continue drifting deeper again, a little further in a while. Drifting now toward the quiet forces that move the entire ocean, currents, tides, and the slow rhythms of the sea. Let your mind settle again, soft and unhurried. We've drifted past strange, glowing creatures tonight. Let's rise a little now, back toward calmer water, and rest for a while on the quiet forces that move the whole ocean at once. Let's begin with something you may have felt yourself, standing at the edge of the shore. Tides rise and fall along every coastline in the world, twice a day in most places, and the gentle cause behind them rests far above the water entirely: the moon. Its gravity pulls softly on Earth's oceans, gathering water into a low, gentle bulge that follows it patiently as Earth turns beneath it. The sun tugs a little too, though more faintly, and when its pull lines up with the moon's, the tides swing a little higher and lower than usual, in what's gently called a spring tide. Rest a moment, and let's drift towards something larger than tides now. Beneath the surface, and often invisible to anyone standing on shore, vast rivers of water move slowly through the ocean itself, called currents. One of the largest, the Gulf Stream, carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up along the eastern coast of North America and across toward Europe, gently warming the countries it passes. The same quiet river of water, moving patiently for thousands of miles. We're breathing slow further, and let's drift towards something that moves far more slowly still. Deep beneath the surface, colder, denser water sinks and creeps along the ocean floor in an enormous, slow-moving loop called the global conveyor belt. It can take a single drop of water over 1,000 years to complete the entire loop, sinking near the poles, drifting quietly along the bottom of the world, and finally rising again somewhere else entirely. A journey so slow it barely resembles movement at all. Rest here a moment in that soft, patient thought. Water moving for 1,000 years, just to complete one gentle circle. Let's drift toward the surface again now, towards something more sudden. Waves, the ones you might watch roll gently onto a beach, aren't really water traveling across the ocean at all. They're energy moving through the water, while the water itself mostly just rises and falls in place. The way a wave moves through a stretched rope without the rope itself traveling anywhere. Wind blowing across the surface is what creates most of the waves we see, transferring its own quiet energy into the water, wave after wave, for as long as the wind continues to blow. Let your thoughts drift further now, towards something far more powerful and far rarer. A tsunami isn't caused by wind or tides at all, but by a sudden, powerful disturbance beneath the water. An earthquake, most often shifting the ocean floor itself and sending a series of waves rippling outward in every direction. Far out at sea, a tsunami might only be a gentle swell, barely noticeable at all. It's only as it nears shallow water, closer to shore, that it rises suddenly and dramatically into something far more powerful. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the ocean's own quiet role in the weather above it. The ocean absorbs an enormous amount of heat from the sun, far more than land does, and slowly releases the heat back into the air, gently regulating the temperature of the entire planet. Without the ocean quietly absorbing and releasing that warmth, temperatures on Earth would swing far more wildly between day and night and between seasons than they do now. A vast, quiet blanket softening the extremes for everything living above it. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Even the saltiness of the ocean has a quiet story behind it. Rain, falling gently over land, slowly dissolves small amounts of minerals and salts from rock and soil, carrying them down through rivers and streams out into the sea. Over billions of years, that slow, patient process has left the ocean with the salt content it holds today. Not something added all at once, but gathered quietly drop by drop over the entire history of the Earth. Rest here now, and let it all settle. Tides pulled gently by the moon, a warm river called the Gulf Stream flowing across the world, a slow, thousand-year loop moving water through the deep, waves carrying energy rather than water itself. Tsunamis rising suddenly near the shallow shore, the ocean quietly softening the planet's temperature, and a saltiness gathered slowly, drop by drop, since the beginning of the Earth. We'll continue drifting onward again, a little further in a while. Drifting now toward coral reefs, islands, and the strange, quiet formations scattered across the ocean floor. Let your body settle deeper now. We've drifted through tides and currents tonight. Let's rise a little back toward warmer, shallower water and rest for a while among the reefs and islands scattered gently across the sea. Let's begin with something delicate and often mistaken for something it isn't. Coral, despite looking like stone or sometimes like a quiet, colorful plant, is actually made of tiny living animals called polyps, each one no larger than a pinhead, living together in enormous colonies. Over hundreds and thousands of years, these tiny creatures slowly build hard, stony skeletons beneath themselves, layer upon layer, gradually forming the vast, intricate reefs we recognize today. Entire underwater cities, quietly constructed one small creature at a time. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the largest of these quiet cities. The Great Barrier Reef, stretched along the northeastern coast of Australia, is the largest living structure on Earth, so vast that it can actually be seen from space. It isn't one single reef at all, but a collection of nearly 3,000 smaller reefs and hundreds of islands, joined together into one enormous, living structure stretched across more than 2,000 kilometers of warm, shallow water. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward the soft colors found within these reefs. Much of coral's vivid color doesn't come from the coral itself at all, but from tiny algae living inside its tissue in a quiet, gentle partnership. The algae receive shelter, and in return, they provide the coral with food made gently from sunlight and give the reef its bright, living color. When ocean water grows too warm, that delicate partnership can break down and the algae drift away, leaving the coral pale and white in what's gently called coral bleaching, a quiet warning sign of a partnership under strain. Rest here a moment, and let's drift toward how islands themselves come to exist. Many islands scattered across the ocean began their lives as volcanoes, rising slowly from the seafloor, layer by layer, over thousands or millions of years, until they finally broke through the surface of the water entirely. The Hawaiian Islands formed this way, each one built slowly by volcanic activity, drifting gently over what's called a hot spot, a fixed point deep within the earth where magma rises steadily, creating a whole chain of islands, one after another, as the ocean floor drifts slowly overhead. Let your thoughts drift further now, towards something built not by fire, but by tiny creatures once again. Atolls, those quiet, ring-shaped islands surrounding a calm lagoon, often begin as coral reefs growing gently around the edges of a volcanic island. Over time, as the volcano slowly sinks back beneath the water, worn down by centuries of rain and erosion, the coral reef continues growing steadily upward, keeping pace with the sinking land, until eventually, only the reef remains, a quiet, circular memory of an island that disappeared long ago beneath the water. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the deepest trenches once more, gently, from a new angle. Ocean trenches, like the Mariana Trench we visited before, form where two of Earth's massive tectonic plates meet, and one slowly slides beneath the other in a process called subduction. That slow, patient collision, unfolding over millions of years, is what carves these deep, narrow scars into the ocean floor, some of the least explored, least understood places on the entire planet. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Beneath the waves, hidden entirely from view, lies the longest mountain range on all of Earth. The mid-ocean ridge, stretching for more than 65,000 kilometers, winding through every major ocean on the planet. It isn't carved by wind or water the way mountains on land are, but formed continuously, slowly, as magma rises up between two spreading tectonic plates, quietly building new ocean floor, one gentle eruption at a time. Rest here now, and let it all settle. Tiny living creatures slowly building entire reefs, the largest living structure on Earth visible from space. A delicate partnership giving coral its color, volcanic islands rising patiently from the seafloor, quiet atolls left behind by islands that sank away, deep trenches carved by colliding plates, and the longest mountain range on Earth, hidden entirely beneath the waves. We'll continue drifting onward again a little further in a while. Drifting now into the ocean's quiet relationship with human history, sunken ships, lost cities, and centuries of exploration. Let your mind settle again, soft and unhurried. We've drifted through coral cities and volcanic islands tonight. Let's rest for a while now on something different, the quiet history the ocean has kept hidden beneath its surface. Let's begin with one of the most famous ships ever lost to the sea. The Titanic, once believed to be nearly unsinkable, struck an iceberg in the cold, dark waters of the North Atlantic in 1912 and sank within just a few hours. For more than 70 years, its exact location remained a mystery, resting quietly somewhere on the ocean floor, until it was finally discovered in 1985, nearly 4,000 meters below the surface, so deep and so dark that it had simply waited undisturbed for over 7 decades before anyone found it again. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward how many other ships share that same quiet fate. It's estimated that there may be as many as 3 million shipwrecks scattered across the ocean floor worldwide, most of them never found, or even searched for at all. Storms, collisions, wars, and simple bad luck have quietly claimed ships for as long as humans have sailed, leaving behind a vast, scattered museum resting silently in the dark, far below where anyone will ever see it. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward something older still. Long before shipwrecks from recent centuries, the ocean holds traces of entire lost settlements, swallowed slowly by rising water over thousands of years. Off the coast of India, near a city called Dvarka, and in various other locations around the world, archaeologists have found submerged structures resting quietly beneath the waves, remnants of coastlines that once stood dry, long before sea levels gradually rose and gently reclaimed them. Rest here a moment, and let's drift toward one particular treasure resting deep below. The San Jose, a Spanish galleon, sank in 1708 off the coast of Colombia, carrying an enormous cargo of gold, silver, and jewels, now estimated to be worth several $billions today. It rested quietly undiscovered for nearly 300 years, until it was finally located resting on the seafloor in 2015, its treasure still largely intact, waiting patiently in the dark the entire time. Let your thoughts drift a little further now toward the tools that let us find such things at all. For most of history, anything lost to the ocean was lost for good, resting far beyond anyone's reach. It wasn't until the development of sonar, technology that sends out sound waves and listens patiently for their echo, that we gained any real ability to map the ocean floor or locate objects resting quietly upon it. Even now, sonar remains one of our most important tools for exploring a world so dark that light alone could never reveal it. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the deepest a human being has ever gone. In 1960, two explorers descended all the way to the bottom of the Mariana Trench itself, in a small vessel called the Trieste, reaching a depth of nearly 11,000 meters, the deepest a person has ever traveled into the ocean. It would be more than 50 years before anyone repeated that same journey, resting for decades as one of the loneliest records in human exploration. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Even today, with submarines and satellites and every modern tool we have, we've still only explored a small fraction of our own ocean. It remains one of the last true frontiers on Earth itself, a vast, dark wilderness resting quietly beneath our own boats and beaches, patiently waiting, the same way it has for millions of years, for the slow, careful curiosity of anyone willing to look. Rest here now, and let it all settle. A great ship resting silently for 70 years before it was found, an entire scattered museum of lost ships hidden in the dark, ancient settlements reclaimed slowly by rising water, a treasure ship waiting 3 centuries to be discovered, sound waves finally letting us see into the dark, a lonely record set at the very bottom of the world, and an ocean still waiting patiently to be explored. We'll continue drifting onward again a little further in a while, drifting now toward the ocean's largest and most gentle giants, whales, their songs, and their long, patient journeys. Let your body settle deeper now. We've drifted through sunken history tonight. Let's rise back toward open water now and rest for a while among the largest creatures the ocean has ever held. Let's begin with the very largest of them all. The blue whale is the largest animal known to have ever existed on Earth, larger even than any dinosaur that ever walked the land. It can grow to nearly 30 meters long and weigh as much as 200 tons, so large that its heart alone can weigh as much as a small car, and its tongue can weigh as much as an entire elephant. And yet, despite that enormous size, it feeds almost entirely on some of the smallest creatures in the ocean, tiny shrimp-like animals called krill, filtering thousands of pounds of them through soft, comb-like plates in its mouth each day. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the sounds these giants make. Whales communicate across the ocean using deep, haunting songs, some so low in pitch that they can travel for hundreds, even thousands of kilometers through the water, far beyond what any sound could travel through air. Blue whales, in particular, make some of the loudest sounds of any animal on Earth, loud enough to be detected from enormous distances, carrying quiet messages across nearly the entire width of an ocean. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward the long journeys these creatures make each year. Many whales migrate enormous distances every year, traveling between cold, food-rich waters near the poles and warmer waters near the equator, where they breed and give birth. The gray whale makes one of the longest migrations of any mammal on Earth, traveling up to 20,000 kilometers round trip each year. A slow, patient journey repeated faithfully, season after season, for their entire lives. Rest here a moment, and let's drift towards something remarkable about how whales rest at all. Because whales must consciously choose to surface and breathe, they can never fully fall asleep the way most animals do. Instead, they rest only half of their brain at a time, letting one side sleep while the other stays quietly alert, keeping them safely breathing even in what looks from the surface like peaceful, motionless rest. Let your thoughts drift a little further now, toward one of the ocean's other quiet giants. The whale shark, despite its name, isn't a whale at all, but the largest fish in the entire ocean, growing up to 12 meters long. And despite its enormous size, it feeds gently on some of the smallest life in the sea. Plankton and small fish, drifting calmly through the water with an open mouth, filtering its meals quietly as it swims. Rest a moment, and let's drift towards something surprising about how long these giants can live. The bowhead whale, living in cold Arctic waters, is believed to be one of the longest living mammals on Earth, with some individuals estimated to live well over 200 years. Scientists discovered this, in part, by finding old harpoon fragments from tools no longer even in use, still embedded in the bodies of whales found much more recently. Quiet, accidental proof of just how long these gentle giants can carry on living. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. When a whale eventually dies, and its body sinks slowly down to the ocean floor, it creates what's gently called a whale fall, an entire temporary ecosystem, feeding scavengers and small creatures for decades afterward, in a place where food is otherwise rare and precious. Even in death, a single whale continues quietly giving, feeding entire generations of deep-sea creatures long after it is gone. Rest here now and let it all settle. The largest animal to have ever lived, deep songs carrying for thousands of kilometers, whales traveling entire oceans every year, only half a brain resting at any time. The largest fish in the sea feeding gently on the smallest, an ancient giant carrying proof of centuries lived, and a final, quiet gift left behind on the ocean floor. We'll continue drifting onward again a little further in a while. Drifting now toward the ocean's quieter mysteries, the things even science hasn't fully untangled yet. Let your mind settle again, soft and unhurried. We've drifted alongside gentle giants tonight. Let's rest now on something a little more mysterious, the quiet, unanswered questions still resting beneath the waves. Let's begin with something sailors have whispered about for centuries. For a long time, stories of enormous, sudden ocean waves, tall enough to sink even large ships, were dismissed as exaggeration or simple sailor's legend. But in 1995, a wave nearly 26 meters tall was recorded striking an oil platform in the North Sea, finally confirming what had only ever been rumored before. These are called rogue waves, and they can rise up suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, far taller than the waves surrounding them. Still not fully understood even now. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward a stretch of ocean tangled in old legend. The Bermuda Triangle, a loosely defined stretch of water in the North Atlantic, has long been associated with mysterious disappearances of ships and aircraft. Most careful investigations have found ordinary explanations: storms, equipment failure, simple human error, no different from disappearances recorded elsewhere in the world. And yet the legend persists, quietly, the way old stories often do, long after the mystery itself has mostly been explained away. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift towards something stranger and far less understood. Deep beneath the ocean, hydrophones, instruments built to listen for sound underwater, have occasionally picked up strange, powerful noises with no clear explanation. One especially famous sound, recorded in 1997 and nicknamed the bloop, was loud enough to be detected from thousands of kilometers away. For years, its origin was a genuine mystery, before scientists eventually concluded it likely came from a large ice quake. Enormous ice cracking and shifting somewhere in Antarctica, an ordinary explanation for a sound that once seemed almost otherworldly. Rest here a moment in that quiet, half-solved mystery. Let's drift towards something still resting, patiently, without any clear answer at all. Even now, scientists estimate that more new species are discovered in the ocean every single year than almost anywhere else on Earth. Some studies suggest there may still be millions of ocean species entirely unknown to science, quietly living out their lives in parts of the sea we simply haven't reached yet. Every expedition into the deep still regularly finds creatures no one has ever documented before. Let your thoughts drift a little further now, toward a phenomenon that glows softly across the surface of the sea itself. Occasionally, especially in certain warm coastal waters, the entire ocean surface can glow with a soft, eerie blue light at night, an effect caused by billions of tiny bioluminescent plankton, disturbed gently by waves or movement. Sailors once described it as the sea itself catching fire, quietly and beautifully, though the truth is simply countless microscopic creatures glowing together all at once. Rest a moment, and let's drift towards something colder and older, resting far beneath the ice. Beneath the thick ice of Antarctica, hidden entirely from sunlight, lies Lake Vostok, a vast body of liquid water that has remained sealed away from the outside world for possibly millions of years. Scientists have only recently begun carefully exploring it, curious whether anything at all might have survived, quietly isolated, in a place untouched by the rest of the planet for so unimaginably long. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Some of the ocean's greatest mysteries aren't really about monsters or lost ships or ancient legends at all. They're simply about how little we still know. With so much of the deep sea still unexplored and new species still discovered every year, the ocean remains one of the few genuine unknowns left on our own planet. A quiet reminder that mystery doesn't always require myth. Sometimes it's simply what patiently waits beneath something we've never fully looked at. Rest here now and let it all settle. A rogue wave finally confirmed after centuries of doubt, an old legend mostly explained by ordinary causes, a strange deep sea sound solved by ice instead of myth. Countless species still waiting quietly to be found. A soft blue glow caused by billions of tiny lights. A hidden lake sealed away for millions of years, and an ocean that remains patiently one of Earth's last true unknowns. We'll continue drifting onward again, a little further in a while. Drifting now toward the ocean's quiet, ongoing relationship with ice, climate, and the slow changes shaping the planet's waters. Let your body settle deeper now. We've drifted past old mysteries tonight. Let's rest for a while now on something slower and larger still. The ocean's quiet relationship with ice and climate and the gentle rhythms of a changing world. Let's begin with something vast and mostly hidden far to the north and south. At Earth's poles, enormous sheets of ice float directly on the ocean's surface, some stretching for thousands of kilometers. See, ice like this doesn't just sit quietly in place. It expands each winter and shrinks each summer in a slow, steady breathing pattern that has repeated gently for as long as the poles have existed, a rhythm as old and patient as the tides themselves. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the icebergs that break away from this ice. Occasionally, enormous pieces break free from these ice sheets entirely, drifting slowly out into open water as icebergs. Most of an iceberg, in fact, rests hidden beneath the surface entirely. Only about 1/10 of its total size shows above the water, while the rest quietly extends downward unseen, the origin of the old phrase, just the tip of the iceberg. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward the ocean's role in something much larger. The ocean absorbs an enormous amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, quietly drawing it out of the air and storing it deep within its waters. Scientists estimate the ocean has absorbed roughly a quarter of all the carbon dioxide humans have released since the beginning of the industrial era. A slow, patient buffer, quietly softening changes that would otherwise unfold even more quickly in the air above us. Rest here a moment in that quiet, steady thought. Let's drift toward the water itself now, and something changing gently within it. As the ocean absorbs more carbon dioxide, its water grows slightly more acidic over time, in a slow process scientists call ocean acidification. This gentle shift makes it harder for some small sea creatures, like certain plankton and shellfish, to build their delicate shells, the foundation of much larger food webs resting quietly above them. Let your thoughts drift a little further now, toward a symptom of the ocean slowly warming. Ocean water, like the coral we visited before, responds quietly to rising temperatures. Marine heat waves, stretches of unusually warm water lasting for weeks or months at a time, have become more frequent in recent decades, gently reshaping which creatures can comfortably live in certain waters, and which must slowly drift elsewhere to find a more familiar temperature. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the water level itself, rising slowly along coastlines. As glaciers and ice sheets slowly melt, and ocean water itself gently expands as it warms, sea levels around the world have been rising gradually, a slow, patient shift measured not in sudden leaps, but in millimeters quietly year after year, gathering into something larger only across long stretches of time. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Despite all of this slow change, the ocean remains remarkably resilient and remarkably alive. Life has persisted through immense shifts in Earth's climate before, across hundreds of millions of years, adapting patiently, drifting quietly toward whatever balance the planet settles into next. The ocean has always been a place of slow, steady change, long before we arrived, and it will likely continue being one long after tonight. Rest here now and let it all settle. Ice breathing gently at the poles each year, icebergs hiding most of themselves beneath the water, the ocean quietly absorbing carbon from the air, water slowly growing more acidic over time, marine heat waves reshaping which creatures stay sea, levels rising gently, a few patient millimeters at a time, and an ocean that has always known how to adapt slowly to change. We'll continue drifting onward again a little further in a while. Drifting now into how ocean life itself works. The quiet biology that lets creatures breathe, survive crushing pressure, and endure extremes we barely understand. Let your mind settle again, soft and unhurried. We've drifted through slow, planetary rhythms tonight. Let's rest now for a while on something smaller and closer. The quiet biology that lets ocean life survive at all, in conditions that would end almost anything else. Let's begin with something simple and easy to take for granted. Fish don't breathe air the way we do, but rather draw oxygen directly out of the water itself, using delicate structures called gills. As water passes gently over them, oxygen quietly diffuses into the bloodstream, while carbon dioxide passes back out. An exchange so smooth and continuous that a fish never needs to consciously think about breathing at all, the way you occasionally do. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward creatures that breathe more like we do, despite living below the waves. Dolphins, whales, seals, and other marine mammals still breathe air, the same as any land animal, which means they must return to the surface regularly, even while living almost their entire lives underwater. Some deep-diving whales can hold their breath for well over an hour at a time, slowing their heart rate deliberately and redirecting blood flow toward only their most essential organs, patiently stretching a single breath far longer than seems possible. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward the crushing pressure found in deep water. The deeper you travel into the ocean, the more the water above presses down, and pressure increases dramatically with every added meter of depth. Most surface creatures will be crushed almost instantly at extreme depths, but many deep-sea animals have bodies built without large air pockets at all, allowing the pressure to pass gently through them, rather than crushing anything at all. Rest here a moment, and let's drift toward the eyes of these deep, dark creatures. In the pitch-black water far below the surface, some fish have developed enormous, sensitive eyes, capturing every last trace of bioluminescent light. Others have abandoned eyesight almost entirely, relying instead on long, delicate whiskers or fins, sensitive enough to feel the faintest ripple of movement from another creature drifting nearby in the dark. Let your thoughts drift a little further now toward the cold itself and how life endures it. In the freezing waters near Antarctica, certain fish have evolved a remarkable natural antifreeze, a special protein circulating quietly through their blood, preventing ice crystals from forming even in water cold enough to freeze almost anything else solid. A small, quiet trick allowing life to persist even in some of the coldest water on the entire planet. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward creatures who don't move much at all. Some deep-sea animals have adapted to a life of near-total stillness, conserving energy carefully in a place where food is scarce and difficult to find. Certain jellyfish and sea cucumbers drift slowly, almost motionless, for most of their lives, patiently waiting for rare scraps of food to drift down from the brighter water far above them. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Perhaps the most remarkable adaptation of all is simply how varied ocean life has become, shaped patiently over hundreds of millions of years into forms built for nearly every condition imaginable. Scalding vents, freezing poles, crushing trenches, and calm, sunlit shallows alike. Each creature, in its own quiet way, has slowly become exactly suited to the small corner of the ocean it calls home. Rest here now, and let it all settle. Gills quietly drawing oxygen from water, whales holding a single breath for over an hour, bodies built to let pressure pass gently through, eyes and senses adapted to a world without light, blood carrying its own natural antifreeze, creatures drifting nearly still to conserve their energy, and an ocean shaped patiently, over time, to hold nearly every form of life imaginable. We'll continue drifting onward again toward the final stretch of our journey in a while. Bringing this journey home now, circling back through everything we've explored beneath the waves. Let your body settle one last time tonight. Heavy, warm still. We've drifted so far already through this ocean. Let's gather a few final, quiet thoughts before resting completely. Let's drift back toward the very surface for a moment, to something simple and often overlooked. More than half of all the oxygen in Earth's entire atmosphere doesn't come from trees or forests at all, but from the ocean itself. Tiny, floating plants called phytoplankton, drifting quietly near the surface, using sunlight to produce oxygen the same gentle way land plants do. Every breath you take tonight owes at least part of itself to this vast, invisible garden, floating calmly across the entire surface of the sea. Rest a moment, and let's drift towards something that connects nearly everything we've spoken of tonight. Almost every creature in the ocean, from the tiniest plankton to the largest whale, depends on a long, patient chain of energy, beginning with sunlight and passing quietly from one creature to the next. Small fish eat plankton, larger fish eat smaller fish, and so on, upward until it reaches the very largest predators. A slow, connected web, holding the entire ocean together, one small link at a time. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward the octopus for a moment, one of the sea's quiet wonders. The octopus holds a strange distinction among ocean creatures. It has 3 hearts and blue-tinted blood, colored not by iron, the way ours is, but by copper instead. And remarkably, it's considered one of the most intelligent invertebrates on the planet, capable of solving puzzles, opening jars, and even, in some documented cases, quietly recognizing individual people. Rest here a moment, and let's drift towards something even stranger about how an octopus experiences its own body. Nearly 2/3 an octopus's neurons rest not in its brain at all, but spread out through its own arms, allowing each arm to act with a surprising amount of independence, sensing, tasting, and reacting, almost as though each arm carries a small, quiet mind of its own. Let your thoughts drift a little further now, toward the deep sea's strange relationship with light. We touched earlier on bioluminescence, but here's a small, remarkable detail worth resting on. It's estimated that the vast majority of all life in the deep ocean produces some form of its own light, making bioluminescence, strange as it might seem to us, one of the most common traits in the entire animal kingdom, simply more familiar in the dark ocean than it ever became on land. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the moon jellyfish, drifting gently near the surface. Jellyfish have existed for a remarkably long time. Fossil evidence suggests they've been drifting through Earth's oceans for more than 500 million years, long before dinosaurs, long before trees, one of the oldest surviving forms of animal life on the entire planet, largely unchanged, quietly drifting the same soft way they always have. Let your body feel completely still now, and let's rest on one final thought before we close. After everything we've drifted through tonight, reefs, trenches, ancient ships, gentle giants, glowing creatures in permanent dark, perhaps the softest truth of all is simply this: the ocean holds more of Earth's history, more of its mystery, and more of its quiet life than almost anywhere else on the planet, and we've still only gently brushed against the surface of what it holds. Let that settle over you now, slow and warm, like water closing gently overhead. We've traveled so far together tonight, from the sunlit shallows down through darkening water, past strange glowing creatures and ancient sharks, through tides pulled by the moon and currents circling the globe for 1,000 years, past coral cities and volcanic islands, sunken ships and forgotten treasure, alongside gentle giants who sing across entire oceans, through mysteries mostly solved and some still resting quietly unanswered, past ice and warming water and the slow, patient rhythms of a changing planet, into the deep. Biology that lets life persist in the most extreme places imaginable. And now, here at the end, resting on the quiet garden that gives us half our air, the tangled web connecting every creature in the sea, a strange, brilliant creature with 3 hearts and blue blood, ancient jellyfish drifting since before the dinosaurs, and the quiet truth that the ocean still holds so much more than we've ever come to know. One more segment to close things out further. A few more record holders, strange adaptations, and geographic wonders. Let your body settle one more time tonight. We thought we had finished, but there's a little more still drifting quietly at the edges. Let's gather it now, softly, before truly resting. Let's drift back toward the coldest water on Earth and rest there a moment. The Antarctic Ocean, sometimes called the Southern Ocean, encircles the entire continent of Antarctica and holds some of the coldest, most nutrient-rich water on the planet. Despite its bitter cold, it supports an enormous amount of life, including vast swarms of krill, so plentiful that they form the foundation of food for nearly everything larger drifting through those icy waters, from fish to seals to the great whales themselves. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the saltiest water in the entire world. The Dead Sea, resting between Israel and Jordan, isn't part of the open ocean at all, but it holds one of the highest salt concentrations found anywhere on Earth. So salty, in fact, that a person can float on its surface without any effort at all, simply resting, buoyed gently upward by water far denser than anywhere else most people will ever swim. Let your breathing slow further, and let's drift toward the ocean's largest gentle predator once more. Sharks have existed for an extraordinarily long time, even longer than trees have existed on land. Fossil evidence suggests early sharks were swimming through Earth's oceans more than 400 million years ago, quietly surviving multiple mass extinctions that wiped out countless other forms of life entirely. Rest here a moment, and let's drift toward one particular fish with a strange, ancient story. The coelacanth, a large, deep-sea fish, was once believed to have gone extinct alongside the dinosaurs, known only from fossils millions of years old. Then, in 1938, a living coelacanth was unexpectedly caught off the coast of South Africa, quietly astonishing scientists who believed, with total confidence, that such a creature could no longer exist at all. Let your thoughts drift a little further now toward the smallest creatures holding up the largest structures. Krill, tiny shrimp-like creatures barely a few centimeters long, exist in such enormous numbers throughout the world's oceans that their combined weight is estimated to be greater than the combined weight of every human being on Earth. An entire hidden population, quietly outweighing our own, drifting largely unnoticed beneath the surface. Rest a moment, and let's drift toward the octopus once more, gently from a new angle. Some species of octopus can change not only their color, but their entire skin texture in a fraction of a second, blending almost perfectly into rock, coral, or sand, using specialized cells called chromatophores. It's considered one of the most remarkable camouflage abilities found anywhere in the animal kingdom, a quiet, instant disguise, appearing and vanishing as needed. Let your body feel heavier now, and let's rest on one final, gentle thought before pausing here. Despite everything we've drifted through together across all these nights beneath the waves, from the sunlit shallows to the crushing dark of the deepest trench, the ocean remains, in many ways, the quietest, least understood part of our own planet. Not some distant, unreachable place, but simply here all along, patient and vast, holding far more than we've ever fully seen. Rest here now completely. Let it all settle. An icy southern ocean feeding entire generations of whales. Water so salty it holds you gently afloat. Sharks older than trees themselves. A fish once thought extinct, quietly rediscovered. Tiny krill outweighing humanity entirely. An octopus vanishing instantly into its surroundings, and an ocean that has been patiently waiting this entire time, right here at home. There's nothing left to hold on to now. Just let it rest, quiet and still, exactly where it is. Sleep now. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more facts about anything you can think of. Thank you for listening, and good night.